welcome to my channel. Today I will be painting a watercolour painting in my sketchbook. I'm just trying to find the right page. So here we go. I made this sketch of what I think is a greyhound dog, but it was very cute. And when I saw it on Pinterest, I just had to draw it. So I'm starting by mixing some black from my Schmincke pan set. It's not often that I start with the darkest values first, but the nose on this dog was really prominent, so I decided to start with that feature first. So the nose at the very front is in quite a bit of shade, with a slight little highlight just at the nostrils and at the very bottom of the nose, so I'll be keeping those white, or as white as I can, whereas the top of the nose is in quite a little bit of highlight, so top of the nose I'll be doing in a very thin watery mix of the black. At this point I decided I'd also do the eyes, as they're also a prominent feature. So I'm putting in the black of the skin which sits around the eye and some of the other features around the eyes. There are some dark bits of fur that I'm also picking out with this black colour. This dog had a thin patch of black fur just at the bottom of its nose, kind of like a moustache, so I'm also putting that feature in as well. So at this point I would usually then go back to my lighter shades, but this dog had some black fur right around its muzzle, and in particular on the ears where there are some folds. It has these kind of folded down ears and there was some very definite black fur on there, so I also decided to put that in, thinking that, you know, black will dry lighter, and so I might have to go back and do another layer later, so I decided to put that in right now. So then for some reason I decided I would go in with the mid-tone browns, or the darker browns on this dog. I don't know why, but I did. So I picked out burnt sienna and a little bit of sepia mixed together to give a mid-tone brown. So I was basically trying to put in a kind of underpainting, so picking out the kind of mid-tone areas now, having already started with the dark tones, and going where there was patches of mid-brown on the dog's fur, but also where there was shadow, almost like a value study really, trying to go in for those mid-ranges and to give the dog some kind of three-dimensional shape. So on the top of the nose there was some darker brown, but it was blended with the black of the dog's nose. It made it quite indistinct, and so while the paint was still damp, the brown paint was damp, I went back in with some black and tried to get the two colours to blend together, so it wasn't a harsh line. There was a definite line of a nose, but that the two blended, still trying to keep that highlighted section right at the top of the nose. So this is cadmium red in a really light mix for the tongue, and this is English brown, which I'm using for the eyes. So on the neck and shoulders, this dog has sort of patches of fur that meet together to create little raised lines, and because I don't want them to be too distinctive, I'm using the wet paint and wet water to kind of put them in without them being really sharp lines. I want them to be blended lines if I can, so I'm using a bit of wet on wet technique just to put those in. So now I'm adding in a little bit of shadow around the nose. This dog must have quite a prominent nose because it's got quite a strong shadow at the sides and at the bottom of the nose. I'm now going in with a second layer of black because, like I said before, this front bit of the nose is very dark, and to get very dark black in watercolour you do usually have to go over it a few times just to get that deeper value. I'm using a clean damp brush to blend, a flat brush. So often in watercolour you have to use another brush to blend, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm also deepening the value of the black on the ears as well because there's quite a strong fold in these ears. So now I've got some of the deeper shades and the mid-tones in, I'm going in with a lighter brown. So I started with burnt umber and added in some burnt sienna to create a sandy coloured brown, which is the dog's predominant colour really. It's like a sandy brown dog really. And so I'm going in with that, leaving negative space where there is highlight. In watercolour you usually start with your lightest values and then go darker, but in this particular painting I think it really helped me to start with the darkest shades and the darkest areas like the nose and the eyes and the dark patches, and then build up where there's shadow and then finish with the sort of lighter brown, still mid-tone though, because I've decided to leave the areas that are in full highlight just as negative space, and that gives this painting, I feel, it gives it a much more light, bright, airy feel, and it's helped me actually keep the highlights where I want them to be. So although I always say in watercolour you should start with your lightest values and work to dark, I think in some cases like this one it's perhaps better to do it the other way around. I'm mainly concentrating now where there needs to be more shadow and deeper values to get a three-dimensional effect. And I will be putting in some of the kind of darker, deeper brown as well, just in places where there's a little bit more detail and where I feel his face really needs that really, especially around the eyes because he has a little eye socket there. I need to pick that out with the brown. So he also has some shadow on his body, on his neck and on his shoulders, so I will be adding in the burnt umber into that area just to give him a little bit more colour, a little bit more definition. Have you ever had to break the rules a little bit and go the wrong way round in terms of values? Have you ever gone darker to lighter? I know often in other mediums you would naturally go darker to lighter, but not often in watercolour, so I'd be interested to hear if anyone's painted in that way with watercolour and how you found it. Did it help you? So at this point I think perhaps I should have just ended here with a little bit more detail around the eyes, but unfortunately I felt he needed a little darkening and went ahead and put in more of the sepia mix, which actually on reflection perhaps it didn't really need, but I went ahead and did that anyway. So here you go, you can see me carrying on regardless. I think it's really important to learn when to stop, and I perhaps didn't at this point. I think I went a bit too far. So here I go, just finishing up and trying to maybe blend out around the muzzle a bit more, but essentially he's done. So here he is, my cute little dog. Do hope you enjoyed this painting. See you again. Bye.